Welcome everyone to the OK Guard Show. I'm Sergeant Anthony Jones.
Jonesy's first time to actually be on the screen and introing. So this is a big deal.
Introing, yes, not on the screen.
Not on the screen because he's Mike Gonzalez,
yes.
But this is a big,
but both, okay.
Big deal for him. So
yeah.
I'm Leanna Maschino. Brian Schroeder, Staff Sergeant Brian Schroeder, is out of the country right now. We cannot say where. Just kidding. He's on vacation. He's on vacation. Calm down, everybody.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
You're fine.
We are here today. It's New Year, new PT test, and we're here with Lieutenant E.J. Johnson. He's helping with ACFT transition. Why don't you go ahead and say hi, sir?
Hello, everyone.
So, tell us your role, your position, what your title is, things like that.
Okay, so I am the ACFT project officer, which is Army talk for being the project manager for Oklahoma. So
Okay.
I'm the lead person in charge of bringing ACFT to Oklahoma.
The Oklahoma National Guard.
Oklahoma National
Okay,
Guard. Thank you for clarifying that.
So, what does that look like? What does that entail?
So that's been answering that question has been the start of my job. Is trying to figure out what that looked like. But for the most part, the way it's developed is so I'm basically managing getting the equipment, all the logistics, getting the equipment here from NGB and getting figuring out how to get it distributed, figuring out where it's going, deciding what our test sites are going to be. We're going to have some major test sites. Getting the people trained and coordinating all the training efforts to make sure everybody in the Guard gets trained.
Okay.
That's the most part. I'm trying to store the equipment. Like, it's a lot of logistical stuff, kind of dry, boring to talk about, but it's a lot of work.
Were you sent prior to coming here and being the ACFT project officer? Were you sent to some sort of training, or were they like, hey, by the way, we're going to throw you into this thing?
That lieutenant over there.
Yeah.
That's the guy. That lieutenant.
So which do you think it was?
The latter.
That's exactly what it was. So I can tell you've been around. Yeah. I just got picked up, and my battalion commander for my M-Day job picked me up and said, hey, you want to come work up here? I said, sure.
Okay. So are you an Oklahoma National Guard or Army National Guardsman?
Yes.
Like you commissioned through Oklahoma, things like that? Okay.
Yeah.
What commissioning source, OCS or
OCS.
OTC? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Cool. The old school, the traditional version.
Yeah.
Where you drawn out 2 years of beat down.
Yep.
Right here in Oklahoma City.
Were you prior service then?
Yes, I was an NCO. I was in infantry, so I was with the 179, the 279. I deployed with the 180th, so I've been around a little bit.
Good. Cool. So being an infantry NCO, you know a little bit about PT and being physically
I've heard of it.
A smidge.
Okay, just a little bit.
Yeah.
I did, and then I got out of the military, and I I I've blocked it out.
I think
entirely.
that's the goal when you get out. I think that's what you're supposed to do.
It's starting to show on my body, though, so I should really get with it.
So the Army has been on the same PT test for, 40-something years now? What is the purpose of this new ACFT? Like, what is going on here?
So that's a heavy question. So more specifically, the ACFT is trying to address a lot of the issues we're having with injuries and such. We have high attrition rates, and it really negatively impacts our readiness for deployments and such because people are prone to injury and also unable to pass the test. So this test is designed to do several things. One, limit injuries. It's supposed to transform the culture, the way we approach fitness, and really that's a tough task because the problem is the culture at large. The Army is drawn from the broader culture, from just the American culture, right? We all come from just the regular population, but the regular population right now, there's about 29% of people aged 17 to 24 that are even eligible to join, first of all, and then among those people, we have all these attrition issues and people not passing the APFT. Right now, I think the average, don't quote me on this, but I think the average is somewhere about 50% of people who have a passing APFT, and part of the other half is some of it's failing and some of it is just they don't have up-to-date scores. So the ACFT is designed to give us a little bit more of a better picture about what we expect if we get deployed. It's supposed to relate a little bit more to combat than what the APFT did. APFT was a really good general measure for fitness, but it didn't really translate directly to combat.
Okay. Would you say, in your personal opinion, which one's easier? The Army Physical Fitness Test, the old one, or the Army Combat Fitness Test?
hands down, no question, everyone will tell you is the Army physical fitness test, the old one. That was much easier.
Okay.
Much more boring, but much easier.
Okay. So I guess we can jump into that retention question here. I mean, it kind of fits.
There's a lot of worry if you look out on social media, if you talk to soldiers, there's a lot of worry with the ACFT. They're afraid that there's going to be more injuries. They're afraid the retention's going to go down, like all these areas. Like that's a general fear of soldiers. Is there a truth behind that? Like, what does that look like? 'Cause
I'll answer that by telling you this. So we put part of what I've done since I've been here. My job has been putting on training courses, so to kind of train the trainers. So our master fitness trainers will put on courses and train people for the ACFT. Everyone that comes in to do that are unanimously across the board. The consensus is that everyone who takes it, first thing they have to do in this course is take the test. It's the very first thing they do, and then they learn about it afterwards. And every one of them say the same thing, that it is not nearly as bad as it seemed like. And the reality is, before we joined the Army, before we joined the military, that seemed like a scary thing. Going to basic or something, it's the same way. And then now all of us have gone through it, and so now we talk back on our experience going through basic training or something and laugh and joke about it, because yes, it's tough, but it's not insurmountable. It's just a challenge. And the ACFT is really not nearly as bad. Anybody who's imagining it, I hate saying that it's tougher than the APFT, because it is tougher, but if you haven't done it and you just hear me say it, you take that, you let your imagination run wild with that, and it's not nearly that bad. It's actually fun to take.
It's like me and getting a shot, like the flu shot.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I know every time afterward,
Right,
I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
all right, I did it and I'm okay. But before, I just build it up
I'm
in
the
my
exact
head.
same way. I'm the same way. Like, I can't, don't tell me about the needle,
Yeah.
don't talk about the needle, just put it
Yeah.
in and I'm all right. But
Same thing.
You make me think
ACFT.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with getting shots, sometimes I'm a little sore afterwards. Am I going to be sore after the ACFT?
Oh yeah, you're gonna be.
I'm gonna be
You
sore.
should be sore
Unless-
after any PT test if you're doing it to your maximum potential.
That's
But
fair.
Okay.
but this one you will be for sure.
Okay, and we'll talk about maybe you have some recommendations of ways that our guardsmen can prepare for it.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of equipment involved, and you're part of
Yes.
gathering that, and we can talk about that a little bit later on, where they could train, how they can train, things like that.
Good deal.
Sometimes when you're being told to do something, that can, like you just said, that can be kind of scary. So what kind of ways are you guys getting soldiers ready, or like what prep are you doing? You talked about sending people to a master fitness test. What is that train the trainer? What's that looking like here in Oklahoma?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because that's been a good one. So the strategy that I developed for how we were going to train, get our soldiers trained, we were going to start with the AGR, because they're just accessible. They're always available. And so we started off. So the way it starts was last year, sometime before I came on, Oklahoma started sending people to the Master Fitness Trainer course, and that's just nationwide. That's how you had to start. At the time, they were the level 3s. They were called level 3s, and they were the only ones qualified to train level 2s, which are now the OICs and NCOICs for ACFT, and the level 1s, which are the graders. Starting this year, we're in phase 2 of the worldwide kind of rollout, and so starting this year, now you don't need the master fitness trainers anymore, the subject matter experts. We still require them here in Oklahoma, because we haven't gotten as far as we need to get as far as getting trainers out. We want to maintain the integrity of the test. But the way we do that is we started with the AGR, and we wanted to train enough AGR personnel so that they can go out and train the M-Day soldiers, like on the drill weekends. And so that's been our main push. I work in the G3 shop, and so our main push for G3 at the state level has been to get enough people trained out and sent out in the AGR force to kind of propagate that training. And ideally, we're going to maintain a network and be able to keep the connections going, so that we can help kind of also transform the culture. So as people come through, we get to know who they are, we get to get some FaceTime, and then as they go on to train, they can refer back to the master fitness trainers, the subject matter experts, and that way, if they have questions or if they forget something or an issue comes up, we can maintain a network that way and hopefully kind of start building a new culture.
What's Oklahoma's timeline on seeing that through fruition?
So we are expecting. So the national timeline right now is that all the Army worldwide is supposed to shift to ACFT focus no later than 15th of March. So here in a couple
As
of months.
in, well,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's Oklahoma's
Get ready,
timeline.
people.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
as well, it's Oklahoma's timeline. However, the ACFT doesn't become the test of record until October this coming October.
Okay.
Okay.
So the next fiscal year,
Correct.
technically.
October 1, 2020.
Okay. Now you said and this is kind of branching off of it, but staying on subject. The trainers, those are now training the M-Day. The AGR are training the M-Day.
Yeah, those are
My
going on now.
My assumption is that will enable kind of thin it out a little bit more, because I know this test takes longer
Mm-hmm.
than the APFT originally, based on all the lanes and how many graders you have to have, things like that. So
Right.
I assume teaching the M-Day will disperse that a little bit so that people
Exactly.
can get through more.
Exactly. So this test, it's a behemoth. It's a beast when it comes to logistics, and that's the big complaint you're going to hear about it. And it just is what it is. But with the APFT, we can go right now with what we have and go outside and take the APFT.
Right.
Not the case with the ACFT. It has to be planned in advance. You got to have the right location, the site location, and you got to have all the right equipment, and then you have to have people trained to lay it all out correctly. So that's been kind of a main issue for us is having to make sure that one of the issues is that you have to have one grader for every lane, and every lane can have no more than 4 testers, and if that
Okay.
makes sense. So that's a lot of people involved in
Yeah.
conducting this test.
Yeah.
So for every 4 soldiers, essentially, you got to have a grader, and then you have to have at least one OIC or NCOIC. So we have to make sure there's that many people trained, so that down to the company level, there's at least one grader for every 4 soldiers taking the test.
Will, let's say, guardsmen that are down in McAllister, far away, 2.5 hour drive, right? Will they be expected to go to some MACOM, and theirs would be Norman, so that's a pretty far drive for them. Are they expected right now to drive to Norman to be able to utilize that equipment, or is there an expectation that it'll be dispersed at a battalion and company level?
Because like you
Good question,
said,
yeah.
we could right now go outside. It's nice weather out there. It's a little windy, but we could take an APFT right here, right now. But you said there's a lot of equipment. Is there locations here in Oklahoma where equipment's going to be staged, or is it going to be out at every armory?
Right, good question. So the strategy is to have central testing sites, first and foremost. That'll be the RTI, that'll be Camp Gruber, that'll be the Norman AFRC, and then potentially Mustang. We're trying to get Mustang in there. So those will be the main sites, and they'll have the bulk of the equipment, and they'll be able to facilitate larger units pushing through and taking the ACFT. However, the plan is to get every installation at least one lane's worth of equipment. The main issue with how this works is that whether a lot of the installations don't have the field or the space to actually conduct the ACFT or lay it out. But regardless of whether they do or not, every installation should get at least one lane, so at least the soldiers can get hands-on with the equipment, get the use of the feel for it, and then they may have to travel to go take the ACFT. Also, those in West Oklahoma, Fort Sill is out there, and they have the full layout. They have a full layout inside, actually, so people can
Okay.
make use of that as well.
So I'm going to backtrack just a little bit because we're talking equipment and you mentioned lanes. Walk us through what the ACFT looks like, if you can, in order of the events.
Actually, we didn't even think to ask that
Yeah.
up front.
Yeah.
What does the ACFT look like?
Okay, so here's how it'll go. You'll show up, and you'll be given the instructions, and then you'll be led in the PRT warm up, the preparation drill. So that's about 10 exercises.
Okay.
After that, everyone will move over to the MDL, is what we call the maximum deadlift station. That's the first event. While you're there, you have 10 minutes to warm up individually. You warm up you choose which weight you think you're going to be able to lift, and you get behind in the line of that weight, and you can go up there, and you're supposed to lift, a small percentage of what you think that is, just a few times, just get some reps in, and then you come back, and you'll get your scorecard, and then there'll be graders there, and they'll tell you when to go. And when you go, you'll do your maximum deadlift. After that, you move over to the standing power throw. You conduct the standing power throw, From there, you'll do the push-ups, the hand release push-ups. After that, you'll do the sprint drag carry. That's what I like to call the great equalizer, because it will tax you in every way. And so when you get done, I think that's the one that people are most afraid of, because it just looks like a smoker. So spoiler alert, it is a smoker, but also you have plenty of time to do it. Like,
And also, don't be a smoker if you want to do that.
don't be a smoker.
We can't
It'd be a lot harder.
Most soldiers can't be smokers now. They raised that smoking
That's
age.
true.
Yeah,
That's true.
there you go. So after that, so we call it the SDC, the sprint drag carry. That's actually a lot of fun. It makes you feel like it's very athletic. So,
Sure.
But after that, you go over to the leg tuck, and after the leg tuck, you go to the 2-mile run, which everyone is familiar with.
Yep.
And that's when the time ends, and hopefully you've finished on time.
Yeah.
At that point.
So does time start at the very first event and end after the run? Do you have a certain amount of time?
Yeah, so for a test to be considered valid, it has to start and stop within a 90-minute interval, within a 90-minute period. So the OIC in charge will be the one helping to facilitate, making sure you go through. Now, I'll tell you that in the several that we've conducted so far, it's been very tough to meet that. We usually come in about 92, 93, 94
For the
minutes.
individual?
For the entirety of the test, right?
But is that for, say, Leanna and I are both taking a test, but she starts after I do because we're in the same lane. Does that 90 minutes start with me? Do I get my own 90 minutes and she has her own 90 minutes?
No. So the way the test happens, everyone does the PRT together, and then from that point on, everything is done in groups. So you'll do the maximum deadlift. There'll be no more than 5 people in a group there, and they'll go through that, and then you move on from one station to the next as a group, and your grader is assigned to the group. Okay. So everyone moves through together. If that makes sense. So it's all very controlled. It's all very structured. Okay. It's not one person going through and somebody following at that. That said, so I say you have 90 minutes, but there's breaks in there because, for example, if you're the first person in your group, say to do the hand release push-ups, you do the hand release push-ups, you're done. You go to the back and you wait for the next 3 up to 3 in your group to finish. So you're getting a little break right there before the next event. And then there are actually scheduled in breaks between, like for the whole group in between events. So you get time to catch your breath.
Okay. So for the planners who have soldiers coming in, it's the officers and senior enlisted that are planning their PT test, right?
Correct.
Are they blocking 90 minutes, or is it safe to cushion? Like, what do you recommend?
Ask me that another way.
So,
I'm not following.
I think I got. If a unit's having to come from far away, and they come to the new place, do you plan for the PT test to only take or the ACFT to only take 90 minutes, or do you kind of plan extra time in there, left and right of it, in case? Is that kind of what you're going for?
Or like if there's can people expect that this is only going to be an hour and a half of your day?
It's people who are taking the test, yes.
Okay.
They can expect it to be anybody who's helping facilitate the test. It's going to be longer because there's so much time it takes 40 to 45 minutes to set up and tear down everything. So the idea though, the test is supposed to take roughly between 74 minutes or so about an hour and 15 minutes. 90 minutes was expected to be given generous time to get it done in.
So there's cushion built in.
You mentioned that there's the groups that go through. Each group gets 90 minutes. So say I'm a company commander or whatever that is planning an ACFT. How many people are in like one group? Is my entire company in one group, or are they broken through like 4 or 5 groups?
So the groups, when I say groups, that each lane has one group going through it, and you can have a maximum of 16 lanes.
Okay.
And that's usually 16 lanes is a lot. It's what you usually have for if you're pushing an entire battalion through or something. So for the most part, for people taking these tests, they'll have a few lanes, probably 4 or 5 most likely, and that'll get 20 people through if you have groups of 4 and you got 5 lanes. So does that answer your question about how
it does, because it kind of takes to like try to put this physically inside my head to outside my head. When we take an APFT, they will have however many graders they have. They line up. Okay, everybody's up there doing push-ups. So all of those people are on that same. That would to me be a group of push-ups. But now rather than that line that goes left right, we're looking at lines that go up down.
Right.
That is a group.
Correct.
So each like grading station, that four soldiers, they have the 90 minutes, and then it's not across that.
So it's both.
Yes,
so,
but no. Okay.
Yes and no.
I like where we're going, sir.
So the group, the up down, you're right on point. But the groups will also travel. All the groups together are being managed by the OIC. So when no one group will start the next event until all the groups have done it, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So, but you're just working within your group for getting your exercise completed.
How many graders per lane again?
One per lane.
One per lane. Okay.
So you could have anywhere between 1 and I think you said 16.
16 max.
So 16
16
graders
times
total
4.
plus an OIC.
Correct.
Okay. An OIC, not per lane, but OIC over the
Right,
whole
over
thing.
the whole thing. Right.
Okay.
So
It's
And so, like, for example, Camp Gruber would be our largest testing site. So Camp Gruber
Yeah.
will have multiple 16-lane sets.
Okay.
So, but for the most part, most people won't see 16 lanes is a lot.
yeah.
So yeah, reasonably
daunting.
at one time, if you have 16 lanes, 4 people per lane, you could have 64
64
people
people,
taking
correct.
the PT test at once.
Correct.
Going through.
And then if you have multiple sets of those 16 lanes, you could have large. Okay,
Right.
I,
And if you
I
only
think I
have
see where
one-
this is going.
If you only have one 16-lane set where you are, and you have more than 64 people, then you just have to run another iteration, and you just have to plan for that because that's another 90 minutes, But you can kind of,
Yeah.
if you know if you're familiar with it, you can kind of stagger it to where it's not two separate 90-minute intervals. If you know what I mean, you can once. You have to kind of time it right to know how far the first group needs to have gotten through before they start the next group, and then you can kind of piggyback that way.
So units are going to have to do a lot of
Planning.
coordination.
Yes, it's a
Because
lot of
you wouldn't want a
coordination.
unit to get there, everyone get there at 8 a.m.
Right,
But
no.
your group isn't even going to start because of the 90-minute deal
Correct.
until
So
noon.
is-
right?
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
Is
Exactly.
that knowledge built into those courses? Because you talked about people go to
Yes.
the master trainer, all that. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's built in there, kind of training that trainer to know that they need to see these things beforehand.
Right. Yes, correct. Because the ones who are coming out of there, it's really they are the ones that are carrying the weight for training everyone else. So we are giving them everything we've got. We only have 7 master fitness trainers in the state of Oklahoma. One's M-Day, and so we've got five who are like most readily accessible. One's a technician, and so we're trying to take the knowledge out of those 7 people who've gone out and got the training from the national schools, and impart it into our soldiers, and that's our main pathway to get that done is during those courses.
Interesting.
So-
So, go ahead.
I think we both sew at the same time.
Yeah.
So about
Let's see if
that,
our question's the same.
are we going to talk about?
Nope.
I was going to ask. There are people out there. There are soldiers they're good soldiers, but they have permanent profiles. Like they can't do certain things under the APFT. Does that carry into the ACFT? Are there profiles? Are there alternate events?
Yeah, so this is a sticky topic right now in the ACFT. So yes, there are profiles. The problem right now is that all the profiles that exist right now were written specifically toward or with the APFT in mind. So they'll say no run, or walk only, or something, because they were thinking about the APFT, the old one. The new one now, that's going to have a very different effect. If you say no run, that means I can't do the run and I can't do the sprint drag carry, for example, because part of that is a run. And the way the ACFT is now, there are three events that you have to do, like that you can't have waived, and one of them is a sprint drag carry, for example, and one of them is an aerobic event. So the profiles have to be, every single profile that's out there has to be redone in the state, and that's thousands and thousands.
So listen to that readiness NCO. So you've got a pretty good workload ahead of you getting those profiles redone. And soldiers, stay on top of that. Stay on top of your health.
So the state surgeon is working that issue right now. We brought on people, put people on orders to help facilitate that, because that's just a major muscle movement, as they like to say in the Army. It's just it's a behemoth of a task going through each individual, and so it's a work in progress, and it's happening. But for right now. I told you we're kind of in phase 2 of the national rollout of it, and so this is where we're taking diagnostic tests. There's no impact. There's no effect, positive or negative, to like careers or anything before October 1. So right now is the time to take the test as many times as you can, get as many diagnoses as you can, get used to it. But you have until 1 October 2020 before there's any career impact one way or the other.
Okay. We talked about the injury piece, and for the APFT guardsmen, it's every 6 months, but the April one typically is a diagnostic, and then October every fiscal year is when guardsmen are due.
Mm-hmm.
Will it be the same thing for the ACFT?
Exactly the same.
Okay.
You're right. So the first ACFT diagnostic for everyone across the board in every Reserve, National Guard, and Army, everybody's supposed to take a diagnostic in the third quarter, which is April through June. And that'll be the first, that's the diagnostic. And then, like I said, about that time, all the shift is supposed to go to ACFT anyway. Nobody should be doing an APFT unless they have an outstanding reason to.
Okay.
So
the APFT is going to be fully replaced.
Correct.
The APFT is no longer going to be after October.
I saw a lot of people
2020.
tweeting it back in October 2019, like, took my last APFT, looking forward to the ACFTs.
Yeah, that's correct.
They're spot on.
they're spot on. So this
Excellent.
is a complete replacement. Once you've taken the diagnostic ACFT, you should never take another APFT again.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to kind of go back to, because you mentioned it, but we didn't kind of go into it. We went through all the different exercises. You mentioned alternate events. What are there? There are alternate events.
There
What
are
they?
alternate events. Correct. Good question. So another popular question I get. There are alternate events for the run. There are aerobic events. One is the swim, one is the bike, and one is the row. So those are the three events you can take. The bike is 15. Oh, I messed this up. It's 15,000 meters. All right.
Okay.
And then you have the row.
Row
That's
your boat.
5,000 meters, and then you have the swim, which is 1,000 meters. And right now, they're still working on the grading criteria for that.
Okay.
But what they do know right now is that each of those events have to be completed within 25 minutes. And I can tell you from those who've already tried it, and just from looking at on paper, I think part of the idea with these was to kind of deter people from using those as an excuse to get out of the run, because a lot of people would do that with the APFT. They just didn't want to run, so they take
Yeah,
this.
running sucks.
This is going to be this running sucks, and so does the rest of these aerobic events. So the bike, for example, you have to bike further in less time than you have to do with
Okay.
I've heard about. Now you talk about the swimming. So does this give us, and us as in the Oklahoma National Guard, the excuse to have an indoor pool built in the metro area? That perhaps people can
I
use?
feel like it ought to.
Right?
I see the justification.
Yeah. Who do we talk to about that?
Somebody with a lot
the
of money.
Sergeant Major on the
phone.
So whoever
Hopefully he's
has
listening.
deep pockets, that's the
Yeah.
person you want to talk to, because it's going to be one of those logistical issues. Because so for example, those who do the swimming event, they've got to have a swimming pool nearby. I mean, you can't take most of the ACFT and then go for an hour drive somewhere and then go get in the water.
The swim's been an alternate event, I think, for a while for APFT. I've never ever heard of anyone actually doing it, and right now, popping into my head, I wonder: do you have to do it in like your PT shorts? Like,
yes.
Are you do it in
I think you
PTs?
Oh well, no, you can.
You're not wearing like your
you can wear
your own
swim
little
gear, yeah.
Speedo. Like you have to wear the Army gear.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can wear a swim.
The
you can
oil.
swim wear.
that we
Yeah,
just slide right through the
can I
water.
have the little like
The
cap,
cap
the
and stuff?
little water cap to make me swim faster? My
think
Michael
you can.
Phelps.
the nose plug?
Yes, I would need a nose plug, definitely.
Would you?
Yeah, I
Are you
really
one
would.
of those?
I cannot go underwater. Like everybody swims.
Slightly blow out through your nostrils.
No.
As long as you don't have to go upside down, that's where it gets me, because
Yeah.
I start to drown.
I'm that kid at the pool that has the full face mask that goes over your nose, the big goggles.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I look like I'm out
You're
like
that guy.
spearfishing.
And
You're very
upper lip is
comfortable.
Yeah, it's pulled in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sure,
what?
your fiance
I know
loves
everybody's yes. The fiance thinks it is just the greatest thing in the world. Also, I'm engaged.
That's
everyone.
how he proposed. Oh yeah, congrats to Jones.
Oh,
he got engaged over the
congratulations.
Yes,
Christmas holiday.
Wow, so
Yeah.
that's
Super
new
exciting.
news. Okay.
Everyone's invited to his wedding on.
Yes.
No, just kidding.
We're doing a small wedding.
Yeah.
We're keeping it small. But so back to the ACFT. We talked about the exercises. We talked about some other things. What about the standards? How are the standards broken out? Like, because I know in the past it's been age, it's been gender.
Oh yeah. So this is declared to be a gender neutral and age neutral test. So
crap.
there's a lot of
Hey, now,
conversation.
you can't swear on the OK Guard show.
I said crap. Everyone calm down. I'll bleep it so people think. I'm going to be like, get her off the show.
She said such a terrible word.
I said crap, people.
So there's no there's no separate categories like there was for the APFT, where you had females on one scale and males on another scale, and then you had age groups. That's out, and so in that sense, it's gender neutral and age neutral, and that's about the only sense that's the case. The rest of it, the evidence is clear. There's just older people, and there's a difference between older people and younger people, and there's a difference between the genders.
So how would that, for some of them, like the sprint drag carry, you got a guy who's 58 and has been to war a few times, is the infantryman, his knees hurt, he's hurting, and you got a 18-year-old kid who just got in and played football in high school and is just in crazy shape.
I think some of it is broken down by rank structure, isn't it? Like,
yes.
So that's, I think, the idea there.
Okay.
So the main premise is that it's broken down by MOS. Okay, so whatever your MOS is will determine the difficulty of the standard that you have to meet. And there's the 3 standards. The easiest way people remember them are gold, silver, and black, or gold, gray, and black. But they're called, gold is moderate, silver is significant, and then black is heavy. So it's the hardest. So naturally, the more taxing your MOS is, say you're an infantry unit, you're going to have the black standard. You got the higher standard. But even with that, really, it's still not. It sounds more frightening than it actually is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't have to go through line by line of MOSs.
Good on that one still. I don't know why I'm just paranoid.
So we don't have to go line by line on MOSs going, yes, 13 Bravos, you're this. 11 Bravos, you're this. 46 something, you're this. Is there a place where people can go to find their standards?
Yeah, so there's a place people can go. There's one place to go to find everything they need to know, everything we're talking about and more on the ACFT. It is Army. It's the actual Army's website, and it's army.mil/ACFT.
Okay.
Very easy.
We'll put that in our show notes for people, and that's it. That's the only
Yeah,
thing
that's
we're
the whole
putting in
thing.
there.
We're actually not even going to publish the podcast.
Yeah,
we're just going to
post the link.
we're going to post the link.
Surprise!
We're gonna have an hour-long audio file that's just you on repeat saying army.mil/ACFT.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Thanks for watching the OK Guard Show.
OK Guard Show.
It's a good time.
Going down our list, we've talked. I keep repeating myself. We talked about a lot of this already.
Yeah. Well, like newly enlisted, I assume soldiers at basic are already doing this?
So soldiers coming in starting like this year, starting October 1, everybody going to boot camp, they only see the ACFT. So so the soldiers that are going to start arriving in units are not even going to know what the APFT, I mean, I'm sure they'll know that exists, but they'll have no real experience with it. And so that's the idea, is that, over just a short amount of time, most people, it's just be us older people who remember both, but everyone else will just
back
only
in the
know.
old days,
We'll be talking about, we'll be reminiscing about the ABFT.
I miss those sit-ups.
Run, push-ups, and sit-ups.
Oh, yeah, all those push-ups.
Are they doing both right now, or do you know, in basic?
I don't know if I imagine they're getting some familiarity at least with the APFT, but what they're having to, for their record, it's the ACFT.
Man,
Okay.
even before October.
So this year, so for the rest of us, this is our year to transition.
Yep.
And for those coming in right now, they're just coming in
It's
with it.
ACFT.
So they won't have to go through a transition.
It's like when we switch uniforms, those kids get it like a year ahead of everyone else.
When I joined, it was right at the transition when they started doing the PRT. So it was it was
right.
because when I got back, there were a lot of people who still hadn't gotten that yet, and that's all I knew.
Yeah, so I'm one of those guys
PRT.
who like struggle, and so the younger soldiers look at me and they're like, I said, okay, lead PRT, and I'm having to refer to notes and stuff like that, and they're like, this guy is like higher rank, has been in forever and doesn't know PRT. I'm like, you don't understand. This is new, and I have to transition to this.
Yeah.
You came in with this,
There's
so it's
a
natural.
whole other
What is
FM
it?
in my head.
I mean, even it's like changeover, but now it's change position. Switch. You know, it's stupid. Yeah, not stupid. Sorry, but
It's very
little
smart.
minute details like that. Yes.
It's the Army Combat Fitness Test.
Correct.
How does it measure combat? Like, where does the combat come into that?
So the scientists involved in developing this thing, I'm just going to assume there were scientists involved.
I like to think there's people in lab coats with beakers, like,
Right.
Yeah.
yes, measuring the combat now.
With their
Safety, the swim goggles.
Nerd.
We're at 3 combat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they were very intentional about trying to develop a test that was a better gauge and a better predictor of how people would perform in combat. Not only just with having the strength and abilities, the capabilities to perform combat tasks, but also the to be able to predict or at least mitigate the risk of injury. So all that was a lot that was involved with this. And so on that website I told you about, you will find each event. So it shows each event, and underneath each event, it shows you what the practical application of it is. So it'll show you the standing power throw, for example, and then it'll show you a picture of a soldier hoisting a can of ammo up over to another soldier in an LMTV or some kind of a truck, and it shows all the applications, showing carrying a litter, carrying a casualty in the litter, and how that relates to the sprint drag carry and all that. So all these things are supposed to mimic the same movements you would see done in a combat situation.
That way you don't have the soldiers who are like, why are we doing this? This is stupid. They
Right.
can actually see,
Right. And,
hey, you're doing this.
The reality has been that that's been the case for for a long time with the APFT, but
Yeah.
it's just been so normal that we just kind of go with it. But the reality was, like, how is doing 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, and running for 2 miles? I mean, I've had this conversation many times as an enlisted soldier. Like, how does this relate to, and who runs for 2 miles in combat?
Yeah.
And who's sitting laid down and doing 60, 70 push-ups?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
combat. So
Dodging the bullets.
I just have this mental image of like a senior NCO out there doing sit-ups while mortar fires.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay. I lean forward.
Yeah.
I lean back. I lean forward. I lean back.
Oh, yeah.
So this is supposed to help. It's supposed to look a little bit more like what you see, and ideally it can be kind of intuitive to see how it relates over. But if it's not intuitive enough, like I said, that website will tell you exactly, like, this is what it's supposed to do. The maximum deadlift is supposed to help you be able to jump and bound and land. If you're jumping off something, to help you be able to control your balance and your weight when you're landing, that sort of thing.
In your opinion, and based on your experience so far, do you think the ACFT is here to stay?
I do. Yeah. Every indicator I see is that it's going to be here a while. I know there's some people hesitating to embrace it because they're like, oh, there's no way, it's too complicated, and they're looking at all the issues. But I've spoken to generals from TRADOC who've come down and talked about it, and everyone I've spoken to up the chain, down the chain. I'm constantly in coordination with NGB. As much of a muscle movement as it is at our level to implement it, it was that much more of a muscle movement at their level. So there's no way they're putting all this work and effort in. They spent a lot of years and time developing this thing just to be
imagine.
like a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, tons of money. This cost them a lot more than the APFT.
Yeah.
APFT is free.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Get
for
your
the
butt
most
out
part,
there.
go get a stopwatch, and it costs
Sure.
a stopwatch. So
For soldiers to prepare for the APFT, push-ups, sit-ups, run, how does a traditional guardsman, how are they preparing, or how should they be preparing, I guess, for the ACFT?
So that's one of the points that we try to stress during our certification courses, because that is, I think, the hugest. Is that a word? Can I say hugest?
It
on
is
this
We're going to
now.
make it
podcast?
one.
Okay, thanks.
We're public affairs.
That is
Not exactly
Whatever.
the grammar police. I guess we are the
We
grammar
are.
police.
We are,
but
big time.
so.
The hugest, you were saying?
It's one of the biggest notes that we want to get out is that you have to train for this thing, and most people don't have this equipment at home. I don't, certainly don't. So, but the idea is, if you're training at all, if you're training to be fit, then this test is supposed to measure where you are in training. So one of the problems that we have, and this comes along with the culture change that has to happen in the Guard, is that, I say in the Guard, but across the nation, we got to get away from training to the test, because that's just what we do.
Yeah.
So we tell me what the minimum standard is. This is a test. Tell me exactly what I have to do on it, and then that's what I'm going to prepare myself to do. But the reality is, if you're training to prepare for combat, and you're training to your own capacity, your own potential, then any test that comes that's meant to just gauge where you are, you should be able to meet the minimum, but if you're training with the minimum as your top goal, then you have no room to fall short. You fall short anywhere, you failed. So that's part of what has to come along with this. But there's plenty of ways to train. So the PRT, for example, that's the FM 7-22. That is, I strongly, just want to keep hitting on that. FM 7-22, get into that PRT manual. The ACFT is designed very strongly with the PRT in mind. PRT has the leg tuck, for example, in it. PRT has been out for over 10 years or something, and some people are like, the leg tuck, this is the first time they've seen it, how to do it. I honestly, I'm one. I didn't know, I'd never seen the leg tuck before, but it's in there. And the leg tuck is the number one eliminator in the test. It's the hardest thing for people to get.
I would say that's what I'm the most concerned about is the leg tuck.
It eliminates.
Just pedal your feet.
Just pedal my feet.
It eliminates.
Walk up the pole.
Yeah.
No, people tried. I've watched it happen actually, and they can do it successfully. However, it eliminates you if you try that. So unfortunately, you got to learn the techniques, and you just have to build up. So again, on that same website I gave you, under each event, it'll give you some PRT exercises, at least 3 for each one, that help you build the muscles you need to be able to conduct that. And so if you start now, the test doesn't become record until October. So if you start now and just develop a regular routine, it doesn't have to be every day. Ideally, a minimum of 3 times a week. I mean, ideally 5 times a week, but at least 3 times a week, because your body has to feel it enough times to adjust to it. If you just do it 1 or 2 times a week, then your body just thinks it's a one-off and it's just going to stay where it is. But if it recognizes this is a pattern that's going to keep happening, and it's like, okay, we got to get stronger so we can handle this. Okay. So you got to do that at least 3 times a week, and just hit those exercises on that website, or there's unlimited number of these support programs out there now, and websites and podcasts and YouTubes and everything for trying to help people get prepared for this, because it's a monster of an idea, but it's not really when you put it into practice. It just means you just have to start living healthier, essentially.
Sure.
Live a fitter, healthier life, and you'll be fine.
I'm guessing doing that will prevent injury when you actually do take the ACFT. It's not like you've been Netflix and chilling for 6 months, and then you show up to take this thing and you haven't done anything.
I think you broke him.
But I mean, like when you show up and you're doing these exercises you have not, and you all of a sudden pull something.
You've been celebrating Taco Tuesday every day for the last 365.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't eat particularly healthy. I need to. I try to work on it, but it's really, as long as you are, it's part of the routine. So a lot of times, for example, in PRT, there's a lot of exercises that when I first saw it, it was like, this is just weird. Like, I don't feel like I'm getting a workout at all, and I'm just doing this like kind of like walking like a duck kind of stuff, and it's like, what is the point of this? These things were designed to build your kind of your balance where it needs to be built, like your stability muscles where they need to be, your ligaments and tendons. So those things, some of those seem like, because you don't feel the same kind of muscular exhaustion that you're used to feeling when you feel like you're working out. It may feel like you're just wasting your time. Like, what are we doing after I do a PRT warm up or cool down? It feels like nothing. But what you're doing without realizing it is that you're building all the stuff that you're going to need that is going to become an injury prone later. Yeah. So that's what that's all about, is trying to prevent those injuries, building those little small things that we overlook when we're training, because we just want to see muscle. You just want to see performance and go for the big stuff.
Yeah.
But you got
shaped like a triangle.
You got to get the little stuff in there.
Don't skip leg day, everybody.
Friends don't let friends skip leg day.
Yeah. So we haven't really talked about scoring in comparison of APFT and ACFT. So we jump in that.
Yeah.
Real
So
quick.
so the scoring. So the APFT, the older one, it's a 300 point scale, and 100 points for each event. So in that way, it's similar with the ACFT, except for the 6 events. So now instead of 300 points, you can get 600 points, 100 points per event. One of the differences is that there's no extended scale like there was for the APFT, because now the goal is different. It's not about just trying to get as many points as you can. It's about trying to develop you kind of a whole, well-rounded kind of a product. So. Okay. So the idea is, like, you need to meet the standard, whatever your standard is, and as long as you meet that standard, you're good. You can either meet the standard or you can max, but that's about it. Once you get past maxing, if you can get past maxing, but it's been done. I mean, people have maxed it. But if you get past maxing, then it's just for kudos for you and bravo points.
Yeah.
And that's good. You should. If you can get past it, the idea again is instead of training to the test, train to your potential. Train what you're capable of doing, and see where, and then let the test kind of tell you where that is, where you are in that.
So here's a real opinion question. In the past, lightning round. In the past, people have said, "Oh, well, that person's older; they don't have to meet the same standard I do. That person's a different gender; they don't have to meet the same standard." Do you think that there's going to be that, like, that guy's MOS isn't that hard? Like, he doesn't have to do what I have to do. He's not a real soldier.
Of course there is. So one thing that I've learned in my many years in the military's taught me this well, is that it is so easy to be a negative Nancy. Like, you can give somebody $1 million, I think, in this organization, and somebody will find ways to complain about. Like,
I have to pay taxes on this.
Yeah, there's something to complain about anywhere. So part of it is just in fun. This is kind of we bond that way, and then part of it is just, I think a lot of it is honestly like some insecurities. I think a lot of the people who feel prone to make those kind of comments are really insecure about their own capability, either their own capability or there's some other frustration or issue going on there. But that's just, I think that's just kind of part and parcel of being part of the human organization. And
Well, you were an NCO, you're an officer now. How do we as leaders help other leaders and our soldiers move past that kind of negative Nancy-ness?
So that is my primary objective. As soon as I get the logistics out of the way, that's going to be my next primary objective. I've got to come up with a plan, because really it's about, I heard recently there's a measure, and it's called grit, and they found a way scientifically to kind of attach measures to how much grit a person has. And so what they determined was that there's some people who can get high academic scores in school and on paper look like they're the perfect person for a position or something, and then you put them in a tough environment or tough conditions, and then they kind of flake out, and it's like, well, what happened? They were the perfect person, and then you bring somebody else in who doesn't have as high scores, and they excel, and it's they're like, the difference was a grit score so for us as leaders, number one, we have to lead by example. And we create the culture and we create the atmosphere that we live in. So, for example, I work in the G3 shop. So when I see my supervisor, whether I realize it or not, even subconsciously, when he comes through all the time, he's always in a positive, jovial mood, and he's very laid back and stuff. So that creates the atmosphere for the rest of us working under him to be more laid back in our work. Like that. But if he came through like very stern and very, walking at the, in a very military, erect position and, very detailed, hitting it, we'd all feel a lot more tense, and so it starts with the leaders. Just your attitude, just your presence itself is going to set the tone. But then what do you care about? So if, for example, the guy who hired me said, hey, we need somebody to come in and do this ACFT, we need to get this put in Oklahoma, go figure that out. I mean, just get it done. Like, if I could tell that he didn't care, then I have much less reason to care myself, and so, or if he's not doing a good job at whatever his job is, like, he's setting the bar very low. And so even though I don't consciously say, okay, well, because he's not doing a good job, I'm not going to do a good job, it's just, that's the tone that gets set without, whether I realize it or not. And so I feel, unless I'm very self-motivated, I feel very prone to kind of just fall to the level of that I'm allowed by my leadership and by my kind of atmosphere, my working atmosphere. So that's the main thing for leaders is, one, we have to change our own mindsets, and then two, we have to find ways to keep ourselves motivated, because as the drivers of the atmosphere, we won't be able to lean very much on the kind of stimuli in the atmosphere to keep us driven. So we have to be the driver. So we have to find other places to get our drive from.
It might be Taylor Swift. It might be.
There you go. You might have to throw in some Taylor Swift in the.
I won't lie. On my last deployment, there was a lot of Taylor Swift and, like, I don't know how to actually pronounce her name, Ellie Goulding. Like,
oh yeah.
There's a lot of that played in the gym.
A bunch of guys getting pumped up.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
Whatever works.
If it works, because then then you're fun to be around. And if I see you in there pushing, first if I see you going to the gym, I'm like, oh, he's going to the gym, I guess I should go. Then just automatically it works that way. One of the reasons, and I live in Tulsa, and I want to live next to the riverside, and one of the reasons why is because I can talk myself out of getting up and running every day of the week. It's too cold, and I have a legitimate excuse. I don't have enough time because I got to go and then I got to shower. I can always come with an excuse, and so I'll do that. It'll be snowing outside. I was going to run today, but it's snowing, and then I'll go outside and I drive down Riverside, and don't you know, somebody is out there running every time. Every time you're like, now I feel like.
Do you feel that way working for Colonel U?
Yeah. So
every day you're like, I should really.
I got to be careful what I say because I don't know if he's listening. And Colonel U, you're the best if you're out there. I love working for you.
I'll say it. He's a workoutaholic, but it's great. He did all on our deployment. I mean, he was in the gym every day. As he could. I mean, he's very busy.
He's awesome at that, and that. So I work for him, and so when I'm seeing that, I'm just as motivated. Everybody in the G shop is motivated because he sets that tone, like I was talking about.
Yeah. So leaders they'll set the tone to kind of try to fight that stigma of not the same standard, not the same soldier.
Right, exactly. Right, yeah. And here's the thing, this is a one-shot opportunity we have. Like, how often does the Army overhaul its entire PT program? Mm-hmm. Like, rarely ever. Probably once in a lifetime at most. So this is our one opportunity. Like I tell people in our certification course, the goal of the change of this test, one of the goals was to transform the culture or about how we approach fitness. But a test is not going to do that. They can change a test as many times as they want to. That's a people issue. So the test, them changing the test, just gives us the opportunity to. So we're either going to get it or we're not. And so it's like I'm trying to really make sure we press in, and we're going to create some networks and such to keep that are hopefully enduring and keep everybody motivated that way, because it's all going to be about changing our mindset and the way we approach it. And we're all guilty of it. So if you think that you're not guilty of it, then you're already on the wrong track. You're already going to probably become part of the problem. You got to recognize that all of us are guilty of it because it's part of all of our culture here. We all part of it, and so it happens to us here and there. We all got to be able to look at ourselves, figure out where we're contributing to that, and then change it, intentionally.
That's awesome. I'm looking at the rest of it, and we've talked about where do we stand currently, when will guardsmen start being affected as far as promotion points and things, and it sounds like it would be October of this year,
correct,
which is 2020.
As it is right now, we've met 76% of our goal for training the trainers at the G3 level, at the state level, and then it'll be on them to train everyone else, and then we will monitor, and they should be reporting back to us how many people are getting trained, and so we'll monitor, and then if we need to can add another course on to help out or something, we'll do that too. But we're well on our way right now. We're right where we need to be.
Yeah, cool.
I do have one last all the way back to the logistics of how the PT test or the ACFT looks when you get there and you're standing there in front of it. You mentioned that there are going to be different weights for the standing deadlift.
Mm-hmm. Maximum deadlift.
Max deadlift. Mm-hmm. How are those set up? Is there a weight for 140, a weight for whatever? Are there weights in between that?
No. So what will happen is you'll get two opportunities. You get two attempts, right? So they start off set up as the gold, the silver, and the black standards.
Okay.
You go up there and you lift, and you're like, I can lift more than that. Then your second attempt, you just tell them, I want to add weight. And you'll have a grader there with you, and the grader will add the weight for you while you kind of rest, and then you can try again that way. Okay. And whichever one, as long as you're able to do 3 reps, you got to do 3 reps, and they all got to be proper form. And whichever one, the highest weight that you can do with 3 reps at proper form, that's what you'll get recorded for.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that when we went and did the National Guard Best Warrior competition this summer. They did a modified ACFT where it wasn't this ACFT. It was kind of its own little special twist. And those soldiers were just like the give me more weight, give me more weight. And
right.
They just kept loading on and loading on. I didn't know how that would look with the actual ACFT. So similar but not.
Right.
Which doesn't translate well on the audio waves.
Right.
So if you're, you need to pass silver or the gray standard, right? Do you recommend people go, because if there's no extended scale, but they can say, I could do way more weight, is that just showing off at that point?
Yeah, so that's really great. I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's something that I think needs to be expressed, is that people should understand that this test, part of this test is you learning to manage your body. You have to learn what you can do. So whereas the APFT was just go out, all you can, do whatever you can. This test is designed such that you'll have to figure out. You have to figure out what your own body's limitations are. So some people will be the kind of specimen that can go all out on every single event and and they'll be fine. They'll be smoked at the end, but they will have done well. But for the most of us, we've got to figure out how one thing affects the other, because it's basically like a circuit. It's like a circuit workout that you're doing. And so it's designed for you to have very limited time in between each exercise so that you can't catch all your breath. You can catch enough to start the next one. So it'll be different for people who are really strong aerobic capacity, versus people who have really strong anaerobic capacity, which is being able to like lift heavy weights and such in short amounts of time. So for some people, lifting that maximum deadlift, their heaviest, and that's the first event you do, that taxes their body so much that now they're not going to be able to perform at 100% at any of the other events afterwards.
Yeah.
For some people, they would be able to, but for most of us, we'll have to figure out what our strength is and because each exercise tests something different. The standing power throw is testing your explosive power. The sprint drag carry tests everything. Just about. And then the maximum deadlift is all about what anaerobic capacity. What can you do in a short amount of time, but at high intensity?
I pick things up, I put things down.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So you have to however your body is currently kind of organized or wired. You have to figure out how one thing impacts the other thing. And that's why you really have to train for this. This is not one of the tests that you can just show up day one and let's see how it goes and expect to have positive results. You can expect to have memorable results, but probably not positive ones. So
I think we just found our teaser quotes.
Yeah, I like it.
Expect memorable.
Cool. I don't have anything else.
Honestly, if it was up to me, we'd sit here and we would talk all day about this, and I would never run out of questions. But
Show off.
no,
It's okay.
I get
Jones.
I get paid to talk to people. I won't lie. I
Let's
get paid
check the
to
time,
I
'cause,
get paid to
get
tweet.
get off work soon. Okay,
get-
we're good.
Okay. I get paid to tweet. I get paid to talk to people. Like, those are the things I do.
Yeah.
And I really, I think I could probably just sit here with questions all day about, okay, how do you do the standing power throw? Like, what's your secret? But I think our listeners probably are like, hey, it's lunchtime. Drive time's
My
over,
drive's-
Sergeant Jones.
yeah. Pulled up to the-
you'd be surprised. So I've had to give briefs to all kinds of echelons on this thing, and every single time I'm getting a brief, I mean, the questions come. It's like my question. I've got 2 minutes for questions, and then next thing you know, 20 minutes later,
Yeah.
there was somebody's having to cut it off. All right, we're stopping. Save the rest of your questions. We'll come. It's just it's a new thing, and there's lots of questions. So easy to talk about for a long time.
Well, is there anything else that we may have glossed over or missed that you think is important for our listeners to know about the ACFT?
So several things I'll leave you with. Number one, don't be afraid of it. That's the biggest thing. That it's just like boot camp or anything else that looks challenging. It looks more challenging from afar than it is once you get in there. So get in there, try it out. No matter what your situation is. I have a soldier who thought that because of her existing profiles and because of her existing performance on APFT, that the ACFT was not going to be even feasible. And so we laid it all out and said, okay, go through it. And she did well. And she was shocked by how well she did it, because she literally has limitations, physical limitations you can't do. So she was still able to do well. So don't be afraid of it. I'll tell you what Colonel Uridia tells us concerning this. He has 3 principles, and he says, number 1, don't be held hostage. So you just you've got to break out of the standard typical mindset that we have. Don't look at all the ways that this is going to be confining or constraining, or how all the ways that it doesn't work well for you, or logistically how it's all. You got to get past that part. It just is here, and it is what it is. And in a couple of years, only the old people will be the ones talking about that, because everyone else is all they've been known. So number 1, don't be held hostage. Number 2, he says leaders lead through adversity, and almost every rank in the Army is a leadership rank. So the idea is you got to learn how to see a situation, see the challenges, analyze the challenges, assess them, and then figure out how to overcome them instead of just dwelling on them. It's like all challenges can be overcome. You just have to figure out how. So being a good leader in the Army, lead through it, figure the way out to get past it, and help your soldiers get past it. And then finally, he says it's about more than the ACFT. So the goal is not to see if you can meet the minimum standard of the ACFT like you did for the APFT. If we do that, then all we did was change the test, and we failed to meet the objective of the ACFT. I mean, we could We can change the test every year if that's the case, and see no difference. The goal is to give us the opportunity to change the way we think about it, the way we address it, and we have to basically develop a counterculture. The broad culture right now, I mean, I can get on my phone right now and I can turn on lights at home and I can look out my window at home. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have to get up to do anything anymore. I can vacuum. You know, you can do anything.
Yeah.
You got Wall-E up in here.
Yeah.
So our whole culture, the American culture, is just getting more and more sedentary, and that's part of the reason why we're having harder and harder recruiting issues and having more and more injuries for the people who do get in and stuff. So we have to create a counterculture that is all about getting back to living more fit and active. So I think that's about it. Finally, if you happen to know one of the 7 master fitness trainers we have in the state, you are very privileged, and I would say take advantage of that privilege. And they got so much information, they want to give it to people. Like just pick their brains about it. They want to hear it.
I do. Hi, Carrie.
Yes, she's awesome.
I think this was great. I'm glad I'm not in it anymore. I don't know. But hopefully that remains.
I'm excited for the test.
It's fun. Like I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe after it's been around for a few years, I wonder if it'll get boring, because I think the APFT is just boring.
It's very boring.
It's just, you're just dragging things like that. So now I can do better than I do on the APFT, but I just don't have the incentive, you know. So, but this gives me, it feels more like you're practicing for something, and it's like, it's engaging, and it's kind of taxing you in different ways instead of just APFT is all about just burn out, burn out. This is different, it's like throw a ball over the back of your head as far as you can, that's you're not going to be burned out from that. That's just kind of fun.
How many people have fallen over doing that?
None yet, but I did have one person who threw the ball as hard as he could. It was amazing how much height he got on it, but it went straight up and came right back down. So,
do you measure height?
Yeah, I think he was hoping so. Maybe somebody didn't explain it really well to him.
So. Needs to release a little bit later.
I saw online, and this is for the power throw specifically, and I am now campaigning for this as well. I want to rename it the Power Yeet. So you can do
Yeet! And that's how we're going to end the show, people.
Everybody knows the rules. Kobe for accuracy, Yeet for distance.
There you go.
Those are the rules.
That helps, yeah.
Well, we're going to end today's episode doing jumping jacks, so if we could all just... I'm just
in
kidding.
unison.
Ma'am, I know you're not in the Army anymore, but it's the side straddle hop.
Oh, pardon me. I'm a civilian now, so it's jumping jacks. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you guys, really. I think this will be huge, and it's part of the effort. It's just getting the awareness out there. That's everything. So that's why I wanted to drop everything. I got a ton going on, but it was like, no, I need to clear the space because I get this done.
Just kidding.
Thank you.
The OK Guard Show is produced by the Oklahoma National Guard Public Affairs Office. Any mention of products or brands does not imply endorsement. All guests on the show are volunteers in an effort to inform and educate members of the Oklahoma National Guard, their families, retirees, potential recruits, and the community.